Memphis.
Oh, you are. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, our editors are scattered out all over the world, so we each
Yeah.
split up the interviews.
Hmm.
Well, Keri Russell, the Americans just finished the second season on FX, and I want to say right off the top, if anybody's watching, we are going to discuss this season. So if you haven't seen it, just tune away. Come back in a few weeks after you've watched it, because there's no way to get around it at this point.
No,
Um,
there's not.
Let me ask you though, when you took this role, I think you've got one of the most difficult jobs on TV because you and Matthew have to make people that we as Americans would normally hate likable. What's your secret to doing that?
Oh God. You know, I think for me anyway, I can't speak for the Welshman, but for me, I you can't think of it in terms of Russians or Americans. I mean, I have to just approach it from an emotional standpoint, much less taking sides. And that's not true. Sometimes we do in a situation that's so extremely political, where we're really bashing the Americans, or I have to say something that's incredibly, volatile in that way, and it's sometimes complicated coming out of my mouth. I do that reversal where I think, what if I was in some other country, posing as an American and trying to do the same thing in reverse and protect my family and believe in democracy. So I do sometimes switch it, but I think more than that, what I do is I just believe I go with the emotional part of it, and I know I've said it before, but I still really stand by it. Spy stuff is cool. Yes, it's totally cool. The political stuff is great. It happens to be incredibly relevant right now, but to me, all the spy stuff is just allows this really complicated marriage have bigger stakes. And to me, it's just really, truly a show about an incredibly layered and complicated marriage. And it allows the writers and Matthew and I to explore these very bizarre, but I think true and weird things that every relationship has to deal with.
Yeah, I think that is the key to the whole show. This marriage one of the neat things about this is in most shows, most movies, you would see, the husband is the more hardcore, the wife. But here, I think you're more hardcore.
I'm definitely hardcore. I know. Who would have thought, Felicity? They're like, who can we get to play an icy, cold Russian spy? I know. Who's that little curly-haired girl? I'm Felicity, little co-ed going to NYU, pining after the same boys for years. Yeah, I'm definitely the more hardcore, and what a fun surprise it's all been. I kept, John Landgraf, who the head of FX, approached me for it, and I kept calling the business people back, going, "What is he talking about? Does he know who I am? Why does he keep asking me to do this? I'm riding my bike around Brooklyn. I just had a baby. I'm nursing. I'm like, what is his problem? What does he see in me that?" And I get it now. I mean, because what he was reaching for was that idea of kind of innately trusting someone and then watching them do
Well,
terrible.
and if the Russians, I mean, they would want to recruit the most all-American looking girl to be with their biggest KGB agent.
Exactly. And the point is just to fit in and to look trustworthy and be a PTA mom, but then not be a PTA mom.
Tell us about working with Matthew. We spoke to him last summer, and I asked him about that's tricky too, being a Welshman playing a Russian who's posing as an American. I mean, that's difficult. What's it like acting opposite him?
So fun. I've sort of said it before, but I really believe it. There's that term that they use in cycling, in the Tour de France, where there's you draft off the main cyclist, and I feel like I draft off him all the time. I mean, he's so good, and he's effortless in what he does, and he's pulling out accents and kind of all these little characters, and I feel like I changed my eyeliner today. Does that count for something? But he's just really I think our group as a whole, Noah included in that group, uh, we're just workers. This is a funny business, and there's a lot of fun, wild characters within it, obviously. And we just have a group that's we're really just kind of workers, and we kind of get down to it, and we're pretty simple, and there's not a lot of theatrics on set. And I think it's just a fun job, and all of us recognize that, and it's kind of ideal, this weird new schedule that the cable shows offer, where you get to work really hard, long hours for 5 months, and then you could go be with your family or go do something else, a play, or so it's kind of a sweet spot that we're in right now.
Let's talk about this season in specifics. And I kind of want to start at the end because we talked about family. It seems as if for next season they're setting up this big arc where your daughter, your teenage daughter, is being recruited to do what you do. She doesn't know it yet that we know of, but both of you do. The parents know this. What is your opinion on that, and how do you think they're going to move in that direction?
It stunned me when they told us that was going on. I think it's great. I think it's terrifying as, a mother. I have two small young kids, and you think, I can't believe they're doing that. But at the same time, I love it. I think it's really complicated. Obviously, there's going to be some disagreements between the couple, between Elizabeth and Philip about it. And I think it's only going to highlight our differences, in the way that parenting does. You fall in love and you meet this person, and you think everything's great, and you have kids, and then you start raising them, and it's amazing how many differences you have. People want things a certain way, and you think, well, we can't raise them like that. Things become very important to individuals within the relationship. So I think that's, for me, that's what I always bring it back to. Not training our kid to be a spy, but that idea that when you're raising kids, how important it is. Like, it is life and death to you. You think, how could you not see it my way? How could you not? And I think that's going to be a lot of the issue. But and also just story-wise within the spy context, I think it's great and just so complicated. What it means to do that as a girl too, and not my big debate too with the producers. So I was like, we're really doing this, and they said, yeah, but you guys are operatives. There are so many different levels of working for the cause. She's American born, so there's politics. Like, she's first generation, so she could, ostensibly be hired within the CIA, kind of. And that is really what the KGB would groom someone to do and be.
Well, the neat thing about the way they wrote the storyline this year is they don't just throw that in at the end. All season you've been dealing with it. We ultimately find out there's a teenage boy that's been recruited, which made his parents mad and ultimately caused him to kill the parents. So, I mean, it's like you totally set that idea up through another method.
There was one really interesting thing that Joe and Joel had told me when we were discussing all of this. They said, intermittently they've spoken to therapists and psychologists, and being solely for the fact that Philip and Elizabeth were really recruited in this intense way, basically as teenagers, as children in a way, and what that would do. But they actually said, and they talked about parents and children of parents who have been in these kind of situations, and they actually said the children of the parents who are the most messed up, excuse my language, were children whose parents had completely lied to them. That there was this disconnect from their entire lives of not being able to trust anything. They didn't even have their own memories to trust. And I think that's where they were going with that Jared storyline. That by lying, having this whole lie that you can't even trust your own feelings or your own memories. And I think that is what Philip and Elizabeth don't want. So maybe tell her to, obviously not have that happen.
One of my favorite moments of the whole year was when Matthew, I don't remember the exact words, I'll paraphrase, but he tells the daughter, we don't lie in this house when she's obviously lying. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, they're good. The writing is really, it's really interesting. It's still really interesting, and that's the trouble and the danger of taking on one of these shows is, you worry, but it's still good.
I'm sure you get asked about this a lot, but I want to bring it up because I guess I'm gullible, but your hair and makeup people are so good that there are moments where you walk on screen or Matthew walks on screen and I'm sitting in my den watching and I think, now who is this character? And it takes me 10, 15, 20 seconds to realize, oh, that's Matthew or that's Keri. I don't know if that's you or the hair and makeup people or a combination of both, but it gets me almost every time.
That's so good. I mean, that's part of the fun of the show. That when it works, it's such an aid to the scene and to the story. It's so fun. It's just that's part of the fantasy element, and it can be really fun and really bad too. There are many disguises that Matthew walks on, and I'm like, ugh, I don't like this guy. This guy, I don't like. And there are other guys, I'm like, that's pretty good.
This has got to be a dream job in a way for any kid that wants to be an actor or any kid just running around in the neighborhood. You're playing spies. I mean, that's what you get to do all day for 5 months.
Which I keep, hammering into my 7-year-old boy here at home. I'm like, no, I'm cool. I play a spy. He's just starting to understand it, but I get no street cred with that kid. I'm like, I use pretend guns. I'm really a cool mom. No, he doesn't buy it.
Off of what you did here in the second season, was there a particular favorite scene or a particular favorite storyline that you loved?
Yeah, you know what? My favorite stuff still of the show, which was last season as well, is really just that unraveling and the complicated marriage stuff when it's just a true metaphor for marriage. So in this season, some of my favorite stuff is when it's almost when I read it and it's kind of shocking, but then I start taking it back to the relationship, and to me, it's so interesting. So the stuff I really liked this season was when it got really weird with Elizabeth kind of hearing about the way Philip was with Martha, and then in that way that I know not every marriage people go sleep with other people, but there is that idea that you find out that your partner is different at work or with a group of friends than they are with you, and how that upsets you. And well, why are you like that with them and not with me? And I think that's something that everyone can understand. Obviously, in Philip and Elizabeth's case, it's a lot more intense and much more heightened because of all of the sexuality. But I think it's so weird and good, and her kind of wanting him to be sexually adventurous with her. She's like, why is he not like that with me? What about me does he not want to do with me? So then when she asks him to do it, and then it all goes so wrong, I like that weird, blurry, complicated stuff, and I think that's when the show is at its best.
It's not stuff you see on TV or in films very often, the kinds of stuff that your writers are putting together for you.
Yeah. There's so many layers, and I just think they're so smart, way smarter than me. And it's just right now it's just a cool show. It hits a lot of different things, and I just think it's fun. God, what a surprise, and just so fun. I'm just enjoying it so much.
Well, the critics are obviously loving it. You and Matthew and Annette and the show itself are nominated to the Critics' Choice TV Awards coming up here in just a couple of weeks. What was your reaction to that?
So fun, so exciting. I mean, the truth is that you know, ultimately the awards don't matter. You just want the show to be good. You don't want to be embarrassed by it. When the critics like it, I mean, that's amazing. I feel because you feel like one of the cool kids. You're like, oh, I'm part of the cool group. But amazing to be acknowledged, and we're also we shoot out in Brooklyn, and we're kind of in our own little world here, which works really well for working because you're not the outside influences seem far. But so it's really nice, to work hard and to like it and to be recognized. It's cool. It's really cool.
Well, you got a big award early in your career. You were very young when you won for Felicity at the Golden Globe Awards. Tell us about that night.
Oh my God. The joke about that is, I was such a kid. I don't even know how old I was. Definitely, maybe I was 21. I was really young. I didn't even know what the Golden Globes were. I'd never been to those things. I had, in fact, in LA, my phone was ringing, and I can kind of be a hermit, kind of a shut-in. I never answer my phone. I still never answer my phone unless it's my son's school. And so I was like, who are all these people calling me? I had no idea any of it. I mean, so I think I just remember being so overwhelmed, and I tend to be sort of shy anyway, so it was a big deal. So fun. And, by the way, J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves, who created Felicity, were with me the whole time, and I'm still incredibly close to both of them and work with them. And spent the whole summer, this past summer, with Matt doing another movie. And so I think it was just a fun ride for all of us who were very new to the whole thing.
Yeah, whatever happened to that Abrams guy? We haven't seen him in a long time.
No, I just wish something good would happen for his career.
Somebody needs to give him a few bucks, I think.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Something will pan out for him.
I hope so. Hey, speaking of films, I want to ask you, I want to ask about a specific film, but I also want to know, you've done a lot of them. A lot of people think about you on the TV side, but certainly you've done a lot of films. If you meet a fan out somewhere, what film might they most bring up?
The thing people talk to me the most about is Waitress. That's just the one, which is surprising because it was such a tiny little film that I thought was only in a couple little theaters, and people really are kind about that. Maybe because it was so small, I have no idea, but I'm glad about it because it was such a lark. You know what I mean? We shot it in 20 days, and you never know what those things are going to be. And it was just such a fun little thing with Andy Griffith, and it was sweet. But people talk to me about that one a lot.
That's the one I was going to bring up. I just love that movie, and just such a little gem of a movie.
Yeah, it's sweet, and it's pretty, and it's it's hopeful and funny in the right way, and it's good.
Two quick questions before we let you go that I see in the chat room. One is from Johnny Lynn. Some of this we've talked about with the critics and so forth, but they want to know from a fan perspective, do you pay any attention to online reactions from fans?
It's tricky. It's tricky because obviously there's so much bad written about you, so it's tricky. You can really go into a rabbit hole. Like late at night, you're like, I'm gonna start. Don't do it. But you know what? When the first season of the show, Joe and Joel, the creators of the Americans, read. I mean everything. When I tell you they read everything. So they would show me a couple of obviously nice things written, not the ones that say I look bad or something, or I'm a real jerk. But they would show me some really interesting, so well written and astute points of view of different scenes and different episodes. And so I have seen some of that, but I think it's a slippery slope for an actor, especially if you're in the middle of a job. It's tough to open that up.
It's just on the small level that we are. I mean, somebody told me early on, because all of our videos also go into YouTube, they said, don't ever read the comments. You can't survive reading the comments, because for every 9 good ones, there'll be a really, really bad one from somebody who's anonymous, and all they live for is doing something negative, and that's the one you'll remember. You won't remember the other ones.
That is so true. It's true, and it's just the nature of it. You're out there, but I I have to say the ones that I have been shown, I'm amazed because this show, because there are so many levels and layers of it. I think there's so many different depictions of it and different ways to, pull the points of view through it, and so they can be incredibly interesting and intelligent. So they have been good. This is a good show for them.
Absolutely. One last question, we'll let you go. Awardzilla in our chat room wants to know what the most challenging scene in season 2 was for you as an actress.
The most challenging scene of season 2. Gosh, you're just kind of in it, and you just head down, and you just keep going. I mean, I feel like it doesn't stop. One of the hard things, we shoot all through the winter here in New York, which I love too. I mean, I love shooting out in the snow. I love what it does, but it's hard. It's hard when everyone around you is wearing giant big puffy coats and earmuffs and snow boots, and you're in high heels and like some bad 1980s like leatherette little jacket, and you're just like, and you're trying to do something really, like you loved this scene and you're trying to like really do it, and you're just like, I'm not feeling anything because of how freaking cold I am right now. It's hour 12 and you can only take so much. So elements is one thing, but it's also, I love it too. I love shooting out in the city. The hardest thing, the hardest thing, I think for me is just, sometimes it has to do with the sexuality, or being like vulnerable physically. Some of those things. It's not something I've ever had to do in my career before. I really like it on this show. I think it's hard to put into words, but I like it. I think it's interesting and it serves the story, and it pushes me in a way that I'm not comfortable with, and I end up really liking it, but it scares me. So a lot of those scenes are difficult, and being really open and vulnerable I find difficult sometimes.
I don't know if it was difficult to shoot, but one of the most heartbreaking scenes you had this year was when you get out of the car and you burn that letter from the mother to the son.
Oh God, yeah. Well, that was nice. Yeah, I like those scenes. I kind of, especially if I could, just in my own head and get to be alone, because I think that's how I personally process things. But there's been a lot of good moments. I'm trying to think if there's anything really that was incredibly difficult. Well, strangely, this thing that I mentioned as being one of my favorite scenes this year, that we had this incredible Danish director, Charlotte. That weird sexual stuff between Philip and Elizabeth, which I felt was so emotional and heartbreaking at the same time, and it was one of the hardest things, but it was also very rewarding. I liked how complicated it was, and so for a woman, we don't get to do a lot of that stuff. I just did this panel recently with a bunch of these great girls, Claire Danes and Vera Farmiga and Juliana Margulies, and we were all talking about the parts, especially in film right now, you're the girlfriend, or you're the nice mom, and you have like 1 or 2 scenes that you're like, honey, you can do it, so it's that when you get to do that really weird, complicated stuff, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and I'm thankful for it. I'm really thankful for it.
TV right now is just a golden age, and I think across all platforms, it's where most of your great actors are right now.
It's such a. I agree.
Well, thank you so much. We thoroughly enjoy the Americans and really appreciate your time today. And good luck at the Emmys this summer. We need to finally get you an Emmy nomination somehow or another.
Hey, we'll see. Like I said, I think the Welshman's our best bet.
Well, you may see several. Remember, Justified on FX didn't do well at all at the Emmys its first year, and then just
Really?
broke out like gangbusters in the second year.
You're kidding. Wow. Okay, well, fingers crossed.
Thank you so much. Have a great summer.
Thank you very much. You too. Bye-bye.